Boo! Happy Halloween!
Happy Halloween!
Well, it's been a minute since we last spoke. Seems like we arrived on the scene and we're like, wow, welcome to our podcast. We're going to have so many episodes, so many cool stuff to talk about. You just wait. And then we were like, peace, bye. For how many months?
Well, we did it on our birthday, didn't we, in July, so it's now October. We skipped quite a few. Isn't that the way, though, when you get really excited about a new project?
Yes.
You go full ham into it, and then
you're
you're
like,
not
okay,
realistic about how that's going to...
never going to touch that ever again. Which is very, very topical for what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
So we are decided to speak about the scariest thing for artists. Burnout. Artist burnout. Very topical for Halloween, even though it is possibly the sunniest day.
Yeah, intensely warm in here.
It's boiling hot in your conservatory and definitely not very spooky Halloweeny.
For those of you watching the YouTube video, you'll see little beads of sweat coming down.
Yes, definitely. Boiling hot. Feels like summer. So we wanted to talk about artist burnout because immediately after we recorded that podcast, put it up online, both me and Jodie had like some serious burnout over the summer months, and I don't know why we didn't predict it because it happens almost every year, because for us our business gets really busy during the summer.
I find that every year I make the same mistake. Instead of pacing myself, I plan all these things that I want to achieve and then end up getting to burnout.
And it's almost like the quiet period, you forget it's coming, and so you get used to doing all of this other stuff outside of work, and you're really active and you do loads of things, and then it gets to summer and your life is consumed by work again and everything else takes a backseat. But we're here ready to give it another go and hopefully be consistent this time. So why don't you tell me, give me a list of if you had to categorise the commitments and things that you do in life, what would they be?
Categorise them?
Yeah, so I like to think about things in different categories, and so I have like, I tend to have separate calendars for things, and I have separate notebooks for things, and I sort of compartmentalise it.
And you colour code it.
And I colour code everything, and then I sort of fit that into one like mega calendar, and yeah, I could go on.
Yeah, I also have the mega calendar.
But why don't you start by telling us your separate areas of life? What do you consider your areas of life that you try and juggle all at the same time?
I have like overall categories then, I'd say, because I have obviously business, Grace Bakery, work life.
Mm-hmm.
Then I have my jazz and craft business, which encompasses my pet portraits, my greeting cards that I'm doing, and also my aspirations to be a children's writer and illustrator. And then I have my health, which is my swimming and gym, which has taken a backseat for a while. Yeah, general exercise. But I also have my relationships, which are my friendships, my relationships with my family, and obviously relationships with my husband, my marriage, that I have to assign time for as well, because it can be very easy to get engulfed into one. I'm definitely someone for hyper-focusing on whatever project I'm working on, I'll home in on that and then sometimes forget other areas. And I have to make sure that I balance my life to get the most out of every bit in a healthy way rather than get sucked into one thing.
Yeah, definitely. So that's roughly four categories, you'd say?
Yeah,
trying to balance all the time?
Yeah, trying to find time for everything. And then sometimes you have to mix up the ratios, because sometimes your work will need more of your focus, and you've got to agree to step back on some other things in order to make time. You can't do all of them consistently all the time, and I think when I see the Instagram videos of people getting up at 6 a.m.
Oh yeah, the ones that are like my 5 to 9 after my 9 to 5 or something like that, or my 5 to 9 before my 9 to 5.
Which may work for some people, they may be able to do that consistently, but I feel like that's something that I would only ever be able to do for like a few days or a week before I can't do anything because I'm just so tired and burnt out.
Yeah, definitely. And you have to consider that doing nothing is also an important chunk of time that you need to prioritise. So sometimes I like to schedule in doing nothing, because I always get that horrible feeling of guilt of doing nothing.
It's funny you say that because I don't include that in my categories. I don't allow time for just
That's a good point, you didn't mention
resting.
that.
No. Well, actually, someone at work started coining the term hibernation Sundays with me. We say happy hibernation Sunday.
And it's also difficult because our schedule changes, because our work schedule, for those people online that are doing these 5 to 9 or before my 9 to 5, you know, fitting in things around your work, the reason why it works for them is because their work schedule is very regimented and consistent. If you have a work schedule that isn't consistent, or perhaps you're self-employed and you could be doing different things month to month and your schedule looks all over the place,
So adapt, yeah.
you have to adapt. So I get into the habit of planning my week every week ahead and just seeing where the gaps are and see where I can fit and do things. And I always make a point of prioritising time with my boyfriend and making sure that our time off is sort of sacred, and I block it off, and so I try not to plan anything on days that we're going to be seeing each other. Because it's really tempting to be like, oh, I'm off work that day,
I'm going to fit all these things.
I can just do that meeting then, or meet that person then, and it'll be okay because it'll just be an hour. But you know, it's never just an hour, it's travelling to it, leaving, and then you just sacrificed your downtime. And also you've got to remember, it's not just your physical body doing nothing, it's your mind. If you're scheduling in an important meeting or bit of work, your brain space is then taken up when you should be just decompressing. So I guess going back to the categories, I would have very similar ones. So I have work, so I have the business, that's a whole category in itself. I have my art, which I like to think of as 2 types of art. So I have my sort of long-term goals that are about my creative career, and then I have my sort of silly little passion projects that I do for fun that I don't.
Your hobby art.
My hobby art, my professional art.
Yeah.
I would put them into one category because they sort of feed off each other. Then I have my health, so I have, you know, eating right, going to gym, which I haven't done in a really long time.
Which I think makes sense for both of us because we've burnt ourselves.
Yes, burnt ourselves out. So for me, that's the one that goes the first, which is really silly because it was the one that
makes you feel good.
It makes you feel good and keeps you pushing, you know, keeps your body and your mind right. So I did yoga for a while and I've just stopped doing yoga, and I've really felt the effects of that because you allocate like that time to yourself to just really relax and stretch your body out, and I need to go back and do it again.
It forces your mind to stop for a bit as well, rather than you thinking of the next thing.
Yes,
You're just thinking of moving your body and holding that pose for that time. Yeah.
Yes, and listening to things around you. And that's the thing, like when you've got all of these things to do and you want to fit all of the different categories of your life into a schedule, when you're doing one thing, you're always thinking about the next thing that's coming afterwards. And if you're not careful, your brain just rushes through everything and you're not taking time to enjoy life, and suddenly it's October and we did the podcast what feels like yesterday, and all that time has gone and you're not taking stock of it. So I have a business, I have art, I have health, I now have council stuff because I've been elected to the council. Is it a smart move? Who knows?
I think it is.
For my brain.
I think it is because it's fitting for you. I think that you'll do the job well.
Thank you.
I'm proud of you.
Well, I do see it as a massive challenge to see if I can achieve it, if I can do it, if I can do it well, and if I can make it work with everything I'm doing. And it's also a huge test of your resilience and your ability to lead and be confident in your own choices, and it's easy to let other people's opinions of you really get you down, but in politics you've got to be really assured of yourself. So big test for me that I'm excited to see if I can do. And then there's also my relationships as well, so my friendships, my relationship with my boyfriend, my family relationships. And so in my mega calendar I try and look at where I can spend time with people and make sure that I'm making the most of that time as well. And it's really hard work, and then inevitably certain things get left behind, and if you're really stressed and if you're really overwhelmed, you're just not going to feel creative. So burnout and creative block is really, really, really scary for artists, because being creative is your income, it's your livelihood.
And it also makes up quite a large part of who you are.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you put so much of yourself and your soul into it. That's the trouble, that it's not sustainable to be 150%, which unfortunately I'm a bit of a perfectionist as well, so I'm not happy if what I produce is not to the standard that I expect of myself. But if I keep going at something even when I'm not enthusiastic or I'm really tired and don't have the creative energy for it, the work I produce is not to the standard, and I do have to go back and retweak it. And I think allowing yourself to stop for a bit and do something different will fuel your creative juices. And I always feel guilty doing that. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I shouldn't. I know I shouldn't. But at the same time, when you're not doing your artwork or you're not making new designs or thinking about Christmas as well, the pressure to have products for Christmas.
Yes.
Because I've not been assigning time for that, you feel really guilty for it, even though at the same time, when I'm doing other things, like I'm going to the Art Monkey Sanctuary or going to the farm or going out for lunch or something, you're always looking at everything, because you take inspiration from your experiences, and if you're not going out there and having experiences and having a bit of fun,
How are you going to make stuff?
how are you going to then fuel your creative juices? I think it's important to think of it that way. I'm trying to reframe my mind to think of it that way, so I don't feel guilty for stopping. And I did that this week. I had a week off with my husband Jacob, and I ordinarily during a week holiday from work, I'll think, right, I'm going to do these designs, I'm going to get this done. And I scheduled that time just to spend time with him, and we went on a motorhome holiday, and it was lovely, and we didn't do much of anything except for hang out with each other, and that was enough to refresh me and make me feel more creative again, and more enthused about being creative.
Yeah.
And planning a 30th birthday party for Helen and Alex as well. That was something different but creative, because I was thinking about decorating my house and what to do as surprises for them. And that was a nice break in itself, doing something different to what I normally do.
Yes, yeah. And I'm going to say now, for the YouTube video, Editing Jodie is going to put in a little montage of all of our costumes.
Yes.
Go.
And me popping the blues.
Yes.
Right now.
Right now.
I forgot how much I hate balloon popping. Oh no, I accidentally popped a confetti one. Did you record me?
Oh no, I popped the confetti one!
Yeah, it's really important to take a break. So you have like a set of solutions, a set of go-to things that help you deal when you recognise feeling burnt out. How do you know that you're about to be burnt out, or you are burnt out for you?
I think you wrote a blog post, a Substack post, at the beginning of us in July, and I feel like Sarah verbalised it really well, so go and read that, because you said it's like having cotton wool in your brain, and when I read that I was like, yeah, that is so true. Because you have your creative part of yourself that's really enthusiastic still and still wants to achieve these things, and you have goals that you set yourself for what you want to create and projects you want to work on, but at the same time it does feel like you have cotton wool in your brain and that you don't know where to start or how to get there, and it feels like a lot more effort. I'll sit down in front of the iPad and I go to start and I don't want to. I just kind of want to lay on the sofa and watch Netflix and just be passive for a while rather than active. Mitigating burnout starts from your organisation and the things you put into place to avoid you getting there.
Yeah.
To avoid the point, because once you're there, you've then got to try and get yourself out of it, which can be quite hard.
Yeah, definitely, and especially when it comes to creative projects, because you might have a sort of train of thought and you're like getting inspiration from that, and then you're making, so I don't know about you, but as a creative person it's often like my brain makes connection, and it's like all linking to mind maps in my head.
Yeah, it's not a linear process.
No, it's all like all over the place, and it's all connection and
those
linking.
little side quests of thought.
Yes. And as soon as I'm, burnt out or ill or I have to take a break, all of those just sort of drop off, and I have to remake all those connections again and get back to that feeling of inspiration that I had before.
You have to remind yourself where you were when you were in that creative flow.
Yes, yeah. So I do try and avoid getting to that point by prioritising downtime, but sometimes it can come out of nowhere. So you could be unwell, you could get unwell for a significant amount of time, or things can happen in family life, or that just sweep you off your feet and you just don't realise that it's gonna affect you like that. So then that's when the other resources you have come into play to try and get yourself back on track. So I like to build in a lot more time than I think I'm going to need in order to relax and recover before I expect myself to get back on track again. And it will eventually naturally come back rather than force it. I'll start to feel a bit more excited about things and want to do stuff, but I'm not going to put a strict timeline on it. Now that's really difficult for creatives where outputting work is, you rely on that for your income. So I know that for me, I pick up projects as and when I want, and if I don't feel like doing something big, I just won't. Whereas for you, it's slightly different.
Yeah, because if I take an order and I'm feeling burnt out halfway through, I've made that promise to a customer already and they've already paid for it. But that's why I will plan in extra time. So my lead time on my Etsy store, for like a hyper-realistic, I plan in about 5 weeks. And realistically, a hyper-realistic portrait can take me about 30 odd hours, which isn't 4 weeks. But I will be spending those hours over that time, so it gives me time to have a rest day if I'm not really feeling it, or take a few days out, or to stop if I'm not liking the way that it's going, and then go back and relook at it and make changes if I need to. It also gives me time to do drafts and get feedback from the customer, because obviously they know their pets best, and if I've got something wrong I can go back and change it. But I feel like that's really important, just planning that extra time so that you can stop and have rest. And for things to go wrong, when I used to do it with my phone, I had a space issue and I would lose my artwork, and that pressure, because as before I added in extra time, the pressure of getting it done, knowing that you've now lost all that time that you've spent on it and you've got to start again. So always
plan for the worst.
Plan for the worst, give yourself time, and then you're not putting that much pressure on yourself.
Yeah, if you say, oh, I'm going to do it in 4 weeks, and then if realistically you end up doing it in 2 or 3 weeks, then the customer's going to be extra happy rather than disappointed it's taking longer. So they can plan appropriately, and so can you.
Because especially for where it's usually a gift, they're ordering it in time to get it for somebody's birthday or Christmas.
Yeah.
So I've got to be realistic about whether I can achieve it, and especially at Christmas time when I've got multiple orders, because that's me thinking about me doing one order at a time. It's not often the case. Sometimes you might get 5 or 6 that you're juggling at the same time.
Yeah, definitely, and that would translate to other projects as well outside of Etsy. Say if you're doing a commission, or you're doing a group project, or you're applying for funding to do a specific project, always overestimate how much time it's going to take you, to allow for things to go wrong in the meantime, and also so that your customer isn't rushing you. So if you've got a commission from someone and they want it by a certain time, be realistic about if you can achieve it. I mean, I recently took on a commission for a magazine cover, and I knew it had to be done really quickly, and I took that on, and I was able to deliver it, but it was really tight because I had ages ago planned a trip to London, so I was in London for a Jamie T concert, and I ended up bringing my iPad with me and finishing it while I was there, when I'd planned to spend that time with my boyfriend. It was supposed to be,
And that's not how you want to do your work, because you want to have you want to do your best, so you want to allow yourself an opportunity to be sat down and concentrating on doing your best. But there's sometimes things that you've had to have pressure to do. I know you work really well.
Sometimes I work really well under pressure.
Sometimes when we're our family is a bit like that. Sometimes when we've got a really good time crunch, we can perform at our best.
Yes.
But it doesn't mean to say that we're always going to be able to do it, so you have to plan for that.
I mean, Daniel set up a website, our brother set up a website in 2 weeks. The deadline was like looming, and he did it, the whole website. But you also do have to make decisions between financial decisions and also your own well-being, and it is hard to balance that up. So don't always think, I have to prioritise my well-being, so I will say no to this giant amount of money, because you will be tempted to say yes, and sometimes it's worth risking it. But you've just got to be careful with those decisions and make sure that, if it's not every single project you do is rushed and intense, you don't want to do that. But if the odd one is, that's fine, and that's realistic.
And sometimes pushing yourself in a healthy way can improve your creative practice.
And it is difficult for creatives when you're self-employed, when it comes to downtime and holidays, because being a creative, you're kind of always you're always on, you're always there, you're always available, you're always working. You do have to prioritise holidays sometimes, and it's difficult when, you know, financially that can be difficult. We spoke a bit about before about Etsy, because Etsy offers
You can
you can do it on holiday,
yeah.
but you found that that's not always a positive thing.
No, so I realised obviously when you put your shop on holiday on Etsy, it takes you off the listing, so people aren't going to be finding your products. But for me, if I were to take a holiday now, for example, in the lead up to Christmas, that means everybody's searching Etsy now for present ideas, thinking ahead what to get their families for gifts. They're not going to see my listings because I'm on holiday, and even though I may not be working at the moment and I'm going to be working more later, I'm losing out on those sales because I'm not present on Etsy and I'm not being seen. So I don't like to put my shop on holiday anymore. I did it once or twice at the beginning. I like to keep mine on. I have extra lead time in my orders so that I can fit holidays and things in, but I will be upfront with my customer. If it's going to take me longer to get that order done, I will aim to get it in sooner than what I say I'm going to do it in. But I find that that's better. And another Etsy seller that I follow on YouTube, she does crochet work. I'll link her in my YouTube channel. She just puts a notice, because you can do a notice on Etsy, and she'll say, I'm away, but please do place your order. Just bear in mind that it's going to take this X amount of time longer, so that the customers are aware. And I think that's better because you're still present and you're still being put in the listings. Etsy's still showing you to potential customers.
You're just increasing that time. So instead of taking a shop holiday, you're building in downtime into every single sale that you make. So I think that's a really good suggestion for people on how to manage it. That's not to say you can't decide to go on holiday for 2 weeks.
No.
You can. And I think that's where there's another whole other conversation about platforms. Because if you have enough traction to have your own website and your own online shop, you can still sell products, perhaps products that are like drop shipped or what's it called? Print on demand.
Yeah, or digital downloads. I have designs that I've created that I don't have to input with because I've already created that design. And customers can order that anytime, and it doesn't matter whether I'm on holiday or not, they'll still receive that straight away. And if I were to put my shop on holiday, they wouldn't be able to order things like that.
Yeah, exactly.
I was going to make a note as well. Etsy promotes you more if you try and get star seller status, and you have categories, you have things that you have to achieve in order to get that, which is one of which is being able to reply within 24 hours if a customer messages you. And if I'm away and I'm not going to be able to reply within that time frame, I can set up auto replies, which just says thank you for getting in touch, I'm away at the moment, but I'll get back to you in this date. And then that gets included as a reply within the 24 hours, so I don't lose my star seller status.
That's a really good tip, and I think it's important to for all creatives, regardless of how you operate, is to factor in how is this going to run if I'm physically not there to answer the message or do it. And think about that when it comes to your social media, your website. You want people to easily find the information without having to ask you directly. They need to look at it, look at your portfolio, look at your website, have those questions answered, maybe be able to send you an email that you can respond to later, or maybe have FAQs. As much information you've got there is less work that you have to do on a day-to-day basis. Almost like automate it so that people can get what they want themselves without you having to physically help them. All of that kind of stuff that you build into your way of working, your practice, gives you more personal time. And so that's really important to think about.
To summarise then, is planning in time for your downtime, thinking about how you're going to continue creative practice during your downtime, how's it still going to survive, and you're not going to lose out on sales. Balancing out. And then we've spoken about what we do when we're in burnout. When we're here, like how do we claw ourselves back out? How do we get back here to do our next podcast?
Yes, exactly. Well, the key is that we didn't do a podcast for ages. We just waited until we both felt we were ready to do it. So I took a really long gap from art. Really, I actually took the whole of August not really doing anything. I did a workshop at the Ventnor Fringe Festival on the Isle of Wight in the end of July, and then after that everything I did just dropped off. But then I started to find myself feeling like I'd be listening to music on the way to work, and all of a sudden I'd have like these ideas pop into my head, or I'd be like, oh, and I start, for me, when I have ideas, I start to see images in my head of things that I'd like to see on a paper, you know, like I'd like to draw. And when that starts popping back up, I'm like, okay, I'm ready to start getting back into it. But I didn't immediately jump into it. Instead, what I did was I will listen to more music that inspires me, and maybe look at some pictures on Pinterest. So I find things like mood boards really helpful. So I like to maybe look up ideas and pin ideas for me to then come back to later. And this was something I learned while I was studying my masters. So I didn't always have time to do, you know, I had to work and also do my masters at the same time, and it was really hard to keep that creativity going. But I used to have this commute where I'd be on the hovercraft for 10 minutes, or I'd be walking, or I'd be on a bus. And at that time I would just sit on Pinterest and just gather ideas and inspiration. I also tried to book in my scheduled time to go and wander around and look at stuff. I love wandering and just staring at things.
When you travel, you take a lot of inspiration from street art and things like that.
Yes.
You're very culturally.
Yeah. And I love going to exhibitions and reading about things and watching documentaries. I just consume stuff, I guess, rather than make stuff. And also I do my hobby art, so I always have some creative outlet that's not my professional stuff that I can keep to one side, that I can just enjoy and use to get inspiration. So I like film photography, so 35mm film, which is just point and shoot, and I'm just really bad at it, but I'm just a beginner. But I like,
that's the fun part though.
But that's the fun part.
Stage,
you just get to mess around. And then there's collaging and just cutting and sticking. I love cutting and sticking and gluing things and making just random stuff that I don't want to look perfect. It's just having fun and experimenting, and then that all of that work and like little sketchbook stuff and colouring in, like, you know, it all helps towards the more professional stuff when you get back to the.
I think that's why you're fueling your creativity. You're taking that time to fuel.
Tiny bit.
Yeah, like you need to fuel your body if you're exercising. It's a little bit like fueling your creative juices. But it's why they say like a change is as good as rest, isn't it? 'Cause you're still still doing the creative practice, still being creative, but you're doing it in a slightly different way.
Yes.
Like me planning, like decorating house for a 30th birthday.
Creative,
or,
yeah.
Yeah, and my friend Helen also gave me a very late birthday present. Thank you very much, by the way. I had a lot of fun with it, which was a little clay set. And you can make clay bowls and things. I ended up making an otter, of course. But that was a bit fun, and that was something. I'm digital. I haven't made a mess with my art for a really long time, and it was fun just getting a bit messy with a bit of clay. And that was enough to make me feel a little bit kind of energised again.
So that would definitely be a big tip for any creative experiencing burnout, is switch to a different medium.
Yeah.
So say, and that applies for everyone, whatever kind of creative outlet you have, just maybe have another one as like a hobby that you don't take super seriously.
And there's no pressure on it. It's not to make money, it's just for fun.
Yeah.
So it might be going to like a weaving workshop,
yes,
knitting workshop. Yeah, Wendy on the Isle of Wight does that. Yeah. And
we're going to go paint pumpkins later.
Exactly, and that's something that's completely different to your usual creative practice. There's no pressure. You're not trying to sell it. You're not. You know. It's just for fun.
Yeah, you just fall in love with it again.
Yeah, and that's falling in love with it again. Definitely, I think that's so true, and it just clears your mind a little bit, because I think part of the burnout is getting bogged down on your own expectation for where you want to be, what you want to achieve, and putting all those hours in that you don't spend time just being passive and doing something for the enjoyment of doing it.
I love just looking at the sky.
I do
just looking at the sky. I'm really lucky to live in a lovely harbour where we have loads of ducks and swans and herons and geese, and at night all the stars come out and you can still hear the birds, and I just love looking up at the sky and just taking a moment. It sounds really cheesy, but just taking a moment just to breathe and be in the world.
And just centering yourself.
Yeah. And the night time is great because it feels like everything slows down and there's nothing expected of you to be doing. You can just relax and enjoy that.
And Julie, who I swim with, when I started swimming with her, she always told us to just look up for a period of time, where you just lay flat on your back in the sea, and you just relax and you hold on to your float, and then you just look up at the sky. And going swimming, I always just think you have to swim all the time.
No,
it's like sometimes you just stop and you just embrace the moment and enjoy it.
Same with walking. I love dragging my feet and just not walking very fast and just shuffling around.
Yeah, I always feel like I have to get to A to B as quick as
Yeah,
possible.
slow it down. Slow it down. We've gone through a lot. Gone through about what the signs are, how it feels to have burnout, what your solutions might be, how to avoid getting there. It's different for everyone, and I think just trusting yourself to be able to get through it and not have pressure on yourself to do things by a certain time. And if you need to cut some things out and stop doing them for a while, it's totally fine. It's totally fine. At the end of the day, we are the only ones setting expectations for ourselves. It doesn't matter what everyone else is doing and how everyone else is achieving their goals. All that matters is how you're doing it, and the path to success isn't a straight line, it's all over the place.
And sometimes it'll be really quick and sometimes it'll be really slow.
Yes, sometimes you can
sometimes you've got to loop back round to improve it.
Yeah. And you might get loads of opportunities all at once and you might get none, and that's just the way things work. But it's easy to feel like everyone else has it more sussed out than you, but it's not true. Believe in yourself and your own mind. And I think what will be helpful is maybe in the description below this we can add some links, maybe to some music we like, or some suggestions, or for people on the Isle of Wight classes that we think might be cool. If anyone else has any classes they think we'd like, definitely share them, or any ideas. That'd be really cool. We touched on schedules and we touched on planning, and I think that is a whole other topic in itself. That we identified 2 other topics we'd like to talk about at some point. That's platforms and Etsy and how to use them to your advantage, which we will go into at some point, and we'll use your experience on it because you've been on that platform for a long time. And then the other thing is about planning your own time and organisation. And as a creative, I'm obsessed with watching videos of how other people organise their own time and how other people organise their own studios and their calendars and how they plan things and how I'm a spreadsheet person. I love spreadsheets.
I love data, things like that.
Yeah. So I think that could be a whole other conversation.
Timetables. Yeah.
But our next...
I also need to do a review of my, well, for you for the Vent Fringe workshop you did, and for me for the market stall, which is my first market stall. And very, very quickly coming up to my next one at Christmas. So I think our next 2 podcasts, hopefully if we actually deliver them this time, we're going to be talking about funding in November. Yeah, that's something I'm currently
doing.
It's my first funding application, and I've been quizzing Sarah constantly. I think we should have a video on it.
Definitely.
And I can then pick her brain.
I mean, I've successfully applied for, I think, the majority of funding things that I applied for I get. There's only been a few I haven't got. And I think I've got some tips to share on how to make your funding application really good, and that'll be topical for November because the Developing Your Creative Practice Fund from the Arts Council will be opening. And then in December we can go through market stalls and getting ready for creative fairs, particularly for Christmas time.
And public and product liability insurance.
Oh, all of that really fun stuff. It sounds like it's about to start raining, so perfect time to finish here.
Yeah.
Alright, well, happy Halloween!
Got such a splitting headache.
Oh, no, I don't know why.
Hurts, doesn't it?